Without further ado, invite, I would like to welcome Valerie Brown, who is our uh, sharer today. I'll read Valerie's bio. I have known Valerie for a number of years. I met her at Blue Cliff Monastery when I was still a monastic there. Uh, and I'm really grateful for Val's work in uh, engaged Buddhist practice and transformative work. I'll read this bio. Valerie Brown is an author, Buddhist-Quaker Dharma teacher in the Plum Village tradition, facilitator, and executive coach specializing in leadership development and mindfulness practices with a focus on diversity, social equity, and inclusion. A former lawyer and lobbyist, Valerie transformed her high-pressure 20-year career into serving leaders and nonprofits to create trustworthy, authentic, compassionate, and connected workspaces. I also know that Valerie likes to walk on the Camino Santiago and leads groups out there. I hope I maybe get to go someday. Um, let's see. It's just so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Valerie.
So, welcome, dear Tai, dear Sister Chen Kang, dear beloved community. Aaron, thank you so much, and Simona, thank you for that very generous and very warm welcome. Can I get a thumbs up to ensure that everyone can hear the sound of my voice? Okay, thank you. So, traditionally, we begin with listening to three sounds of the bell as a way to ground ourselves. And I just want to test to make sure that original sound is on so you can hear. So I'm going to invite the sound of the bell and just give me a thumbs up to ensure that you can hear this. Okay, very good. All right. So, shall we come into a comfortable posture? Aligning, stacking the body, head over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips, hips over the knees, and the knees over the feet. And just noticing how you are embodying this moment. Noticing whether there is any tension in the body anywhere. And rather than trying to get rid of it completely, I would invite you to maybe 5% more comfortable, 5% more ease. So, bringing your awareness down to the bottom of your feet and feeling your feet on the floor. We know just by feeling the feet on the floor, we can generate this sense of groundedness, rooted to Mother Earth. So, noticing where the soles of the feet make contact with the ground, the floor underneath you. And then connecting with the sits bones. Again, this is a place of stability, inner and outer, lengthening the spine. So imagine that you could grow taller. Imagine that there was a book balanced on the top of your head. So lengthen. This is a place of dignity as well, respect, self-love. And now bringing your awareness to the skin. probably the biggest organ of the body, and imagine that you could soften the skin. Softening the jaw and the shoulders, softening the front of the body and the back of the body, the knees, the thighs, and the legs. Imagine that the entire body was just soft, feeling at ease. And now bringing your awareness to the fact that you're breathing. Breathing in. I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out. I'm aware that I am breathing out. In. Out. Breathing in. My breath goes deeply in my body. Breathing out. My breath goes slow. Deep and slow. Breathing in. I calm my body. And breathing out. I release any tension in my body. Calm. Releasing ease. Breathing in. I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out. I am aware that I am breathing out. In. Out. So taking another deep breath in and another breath out. And when you are ready, if the eyes are closed, please feel free to open them. Maybe stretch the arms up and look up, and floating the arms down very slowly. And maybe twisting the spine from left to right, or shaking, or any movement that would support you. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you for that opportunity to practice together as community. So It's my great pleasure to share this Dharma talk entitled Healing Ourselves and Healing the World. So, again, a thumbs up to ensure that everyone can see this. Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, in this talk, I am going to be sharing from my personal experience. We have this saying as a Quaker that let your life speak, meaning live your life, that the way one lives our life, um, how we move about in the world, speaks volumes. So if we want to be a peaceful person, then how we live our life is a manifestation of peace. And of course, our beloved teacher, Thai Thich Nhat Hanh, has said that our life is our message, or some variation of that. So, since this is, I'll be sharing a little bit from my own personal life, I want to just say that this obviously is a work in progress. I am not checking in as an expert, but as someone who is on their own learning journey right alongside you. And yes, if you have tea or something to drink, please continue to nourish yourself. Maybe it's breakfast, maybe it's lunch, but please enjoy. And obviously, since I'm talking about the self, there are non-self elements. Um, yes, interbeing. So, as a Dharma teacher, my life has really been a manifestation of transformation. And it's so very good to see so many people that I know on this call who have witnessed, in spits and spurts and up and down and sideways, the transformation in my own life. And a deep bow to you all for being here. Those whom I know very well and those who I am getting to know today. So I thought this is a place where we might begin. Obviously, this is an image of our beloved teacher, Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, and I want to ensure, Aaron, that this is in closed caption so people who have any access issues can still participate fully. So Ty has said that volition or intention is a nutriment. It's a kind of nourishment. It is so important that it's the very ground of our being, the very ground of all of our actions. And so I think it's really important that we take a moment and pause and consider our intention for our time together. Um, what might you be holding? Why are you here? So it was John Dewey who said, we do not learn from experience. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on our experience. And so the invitation is for you to take a moment, and if you have something to write with, to jot a note about what has brought you here. What is your volition? What is your intention? And we'll be coming back to that volition at the end of the program today, at the end of the Dharma talk. Again, everything flows from volition. That is how important this is. So let's take 30 seconds or so, not enough time, but the time we have, and think about the volition, reflect on that. So thank you. So I didn't tell you, but we're co-creating this Dharma talk. You didn't know you signed up to give a Dharma talk, did you? So we're actually creating the Dharma talk together, co-creating it. So I'd love to hear from one or two people uh, about your volition or intention. We're going to take about a minute or so to hear from one or two people, one or two brave souls about a volition that you are holding. This doesn't have to be your life history. It could be one word. Um, but please feel free to come off mute or to place that in the chat.
Jane bowing in. Two words, grounded and connection. Grounded for myself and connection with all of you. Jean bowing out.
Is there someone else who would like to share? Come off mute. How to love in these complex times. To sit with you all and be available for thought. Anything else that you'd like to share? So we have 50 people, and we have like 3 volitions. That's not possible. I want to carry on Ty's legacy, and support Valerie and and the Earth Holders. Okay, all right. To keep learning how to ease my suffering, to have peace in my heart. Yes. Okay. Bob, please.
Connections with others on a similar journey.
Say that again.
Connections with others on a similar journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who placed a volition and intention in the chat. So again, we will come back to that at the very end of our process. So going back to sharing the screen here. So I like to begin Dharma talks with this image of a landscape. A couple of years ago, I went for a long walk in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. This is an area of thousands of acres of pine trees, scrub oak, and flatwater. And about 10 miles into the hike, we came to this place in the woods. And you're right, Aaron, I love to walk. So we walked 10 miles in, and when we got to this place, this is what I saw. And I took this photograph. For as far as the eye could see, all of the trees were blackened. They were scarred. They were torn, violently snapped, many of them. However, underneath the trees was this amazing landscape of iridescent gold and green blueberry shrubs that were coming up out of this destruction. And when I arrived there, I knew I was in the charnel ground. So surely we are in a place, a charnel ground as such at this time. There is great devastation, climate catastrophe, gun violence, school violence, so much more. We have a cascade of these multiple crises. So I didn't go to law school to be a Dharma teacher, I have to say. And I certainly had a lot of transformation to do in order to be sitting here with you today. Back then, when I was a lawyer and a lobbyist, my aspiration, my volition was for material success. And not for love and understanding. And I'm not proud of that intention. But over time, with the support of the Sangha, my perceptions, my sense of self transformed. I transformed the fear and the violence in me, and it's still transforming. The fear and the violence that was driven by poverty and isolation and discrimination. I worked to with the Sangha to transform that. And it's still in the process of transforming. And as I transformed, my values necessarily transformed. So to receive the lamp transmission was a very great honor for me. It was an acknowledgement by the community of that transformation. And so I received the lamp transmission a couple of years, I guess, after you did, Aaron, in 2018 in Plum Village. And there's this process when one receives lamp transmission to write a poem to the community, and then the community writes a poem back. So it's a very old process and a very lovely process. So I'd like to share with you the poem or the Gatha that I wrote to the community. I've not shared this with many people outside of that day in France in 2018. So here's the Gatha. And again, it speaks to the transformation that I was talking about. Ancestors invoking winter, becoming spring. Ancestors invoking winter, becoming spring. Releasing the grip of suffering to a heart of compassion and boundless love. Aspirations as vast as the oceans and as wide as the sky. With her lap full of flowers, she surrenders to the Buddha's voice. With her lap full of flowers, she surrenders to the Buddha's voice. And so here is the Gatha of the poem that the community wrote back to me that I received. In the true Sangha is the true Buddha. In the true Sangha is the true Buddha. The power of cutting through afflictions comes from the power of understanding. All bow down in the spirit of oneness. All bow down in the spirit of oneness. So the power of transformation is rooted in the power of inner transformation. And that inner transformation supports our external or our outer transformation. And so I'd like to share these words of Peter Block being one of the foremost leadership consultants in the world. Is there someone who would like to come off mute and simply read these words by Peter Block so that we have other voices in the circle? Anyone?
This is Judy bowing in. If there is no transformation inside of us, all the structural change in the world will have no impact on our institutions. Bowing out.
Thank you, Judy. These words easily could have been said by Ty. They so closely mirror what our beloved teacher has said. So yes, we are facing multiple overlapping crises, but in some ways, we have become adjusted to climate crisis. We have become adjusted to war. We have become adjusted to social injustice. So I want to lift up the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He said that we have become, quote, creatively maladjusted. Creatively maladjusted. So here's what Dr. King said, quote, "There are some things in our society, some things in the world to which we should never be adjusted. There are some things we must always be maladjusted to if we are to be people of goodwill. We must first never adjust ourselves to racial discrimination and racial segregation. We must never adjust ourselves to religious bigotry. We must never adjust ourselves to the economic conditions that take necessities from the many and give luxuries to the few. We must never adjust ourselves to the madness of militarism and the self-defeating effects of physical violence." In his 1963 book, Strength to Love, Dr. King said, quote, "A dedicated circle, we need to become, quote, a dedicated circle of transformed nonconformist," end quote. So to be a transformed nonconformist is to be faithful to nonviolent action grounded in love. To be a transformed nonconformist is to resist becoming creatively maladjusted to climate crisis, to war, to social injustice. And the work of peacemaking begins with cultivating peace within oneself so that we can truly share that with others. And we cannot do this alone. So I would invite you to consider your spiritual ancestors, the people, the communities, the beings, the plants, the animals, the minerals that give you hope and inspiration and wisdom. I'd invite you to call all of that to mind. How do they make you feel? What can you learn from these ancestors? How might you be inspired toward action that heals our planet? So I'd invite you, invite you to consider that energy. Too often, I hear people who are faced with overwhelming and overlapping crisis say something like this. They say, "I'm one person. What can I do as one person?" Well, here I want to lift up the words of the environmental activist Bill McKibben, who said, "The first thing that you can do is stop thinking like an individual." That's a good start. And Tai has said that the next Buddha is what?
A Sangha.
Sangha.
Thank you.
Sangha.
Buddha is the Sangha. So we need community. So speaking of community, earlier this week, I was in St. Martin's Parish, Louisiana, far, far, far south at the tip of Louisiana. This is a place where time has stood still. It's frozen in about 1955 to 1965. The schools, some of the schools continue to be heavily segregated. And so I was invited to come to work with the teachers in one of these schools, the administrators, hundreds of people actually, in a very, very, very poverty-stricken public school, in a very poverty-stricken parish. So I was just there earlier this week. So I'm still resonating with the people who were there. So this is the notice that's on the front door of the school as the children come in, and this is what they're greeted with. Somebody read this out loud.
This is Ann. Go ahead.
Any person, whether a student or not, found guilty of carrying a firearm on one's person while on school property or buses shall be imprisoned at hard labor for not more than 5 years as provided by Louisiana revised statute. Wow.
My heart sank when I saw this. I thought about the children who day in and day out view this. I thought about them living in poverty. More than 20% of all those students live in poverty. More than half of the students are students of color, while 81% of all the teachers are white, identify as white women. It's a very sad mismatch. And I was feeling, as I was talking with the 400 or 500 teachers and administrators and instructional coaches, my job was one thing, and that was to share empathy. We were talking about how to build empathy within themselves and in the school. And at a break, I was introduced to these two teachers. Collectively, these two teachers have been teaching in the parish schools for more than 120 years. That's hope. That's joy. And I started to think about the joy of these and the duty we each have to be joyful and to share joy, no matter the circumstances. And then I thought about these beautiful words by Esperanza Spalding. And I'm wondering if somebody might be willing to read these words by Esperanza Spalding, the singer.
Joy is a part of our inheritance. It is my responsibility in this lifetime, in this generation, to really revel in the joy that has been passed on to me through the impossible, through the insurmountable, through so much grotesque horror and brutality of enslaved Black people, that this joy was passed forward like an envelope that was read and carefully sealed again and passed on to the next generation, and carefully read and passed on to the next. It is our duty to be seen in the power of that joy. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you. As you read that, I feel tingles in my body. I feel the weight and the beauty of joy. So the question I have for you is, what is your duty with joy? Remember these teachers. Remember their circumstances. And despite their circumstances, they are able to do this. That is called transformation. And so, again, Bill McKibben, stop thinking like an individual. So I really love these words by the poet William Stafford, and I've given Aaron and Simona a copy of the full poem, which is fairly short, by William Stafford, A Ritual to Read to One Another. Is there someone who would like to read this fragment of a poem?
I'll be happy to read, Magda Bowinen. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. William Stafford, from A Ritual to Read to Each Other. Thank you.
You're welcome. We could tie ourselves in a knot trying to understand the meaning of this. But could this be any clearer? Is there anyone who is in doubt what this means? About waking up to that, waking up to this, waking up to that. This is about waking up. So I have a friend who volunteers at her local polling station in a very conservative area, and she ran for political office and she won. It is important that awake people be awake. I have another friend who plants a native plant garden. It is important that awake people be awake. I have a friend who writes soulful poetry. Let me hear you. It is important that awake people be awake. I have a friend who is reading and learning about systemic racism and climate catastrophe. Let me hear you. It is important that awake people
Be awake.
I have a person, a friend, another friend who volunteers at a soup kitchen. Let me hear you.
It is important that awake people be awake.
For a breaking line.
Thank you. We each can contribute. We each can take action, and our actions are not for ourselves. They are, make no mistake, our actions are for those who cause harm. And I will say that again. Our actions are for those who cause harm, for those who perpetrate political polarization, for those who seek unity, for the victims of gun violence and for the perpetrators, for the protesters and for the polluters. It's for all of us. So our knowing, our awareness must be coupled with our caring and this, our being awake and our joy, so that we become what? Transformed nonconformist. So I want to conclude with the words of Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, the great environmentalist. And Dr. Kimmerer said, quote, this is from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. So it is my grandchildren who swim in the pond. So it is my grandchildren who swim in the pond, and others whom the years will bring. The circle of care grows larger, and caregiving for my little pond spills over into caregiving for other waters. The outlet from my pond runs downhill to my good neighbor's pond. What I do here matters. Everybody lives downstream, end quote. So to recap where we're at, anybody want to read this out?
I'd like to read it out. Harry bowing in. I'm going to read the title as well here too. Recap, nourishing ourselves, healing our world practices. Inner transformation supports societal transformation. Become a transformed nonconformist. Invite the energy of fear to be transformed into the energy of action, grounded in love. It is important that awake people be awake. everybody lives downstream.
Thank
Harry
you.
Bueno.
Thank you, Harry. I'd love to stay connected. I am appreciating you all for your energy of mindfulness, your generous heart. A deep bow of gratitude.
Thank you so much, Valerie, for your encouraging words, inspiring words, motivate us in our practice. The deep gift, deep honor to have you here today. Thank you so much.